Welcome to Driven to Repair. I'm John Webb, your host with 10 Point Complete. And today we have a super special guest, and it is Jason Stahl from BodyShop Business and Babcox Media. Jason, welcome to the program.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me. This is really exciting.
It really is. And, but I don't know that a lot of people know that I've always had an interest in media. And many years ago, I was actually editor of a daily newspaper. And so we've known each other for quite some time. But I know you've been in this for quite a while. I'm not sure exactly how long, but maybe start with kind of your journey and how you got involved with media.
Yeah, so it's funny. Going all the way back to grade school, my friends and I would trade notes in class, but they weren't like love notes. They were stories. They were made up horror stories, creative fiction. And I realized I liked writing, and so that led me to submitting short stories to the high school literary magazine, and then going to college and thinking about journalism and ultimately landing on an English degree. And then when I graduated college, I got a job with a small weekly newspaper that covered suburbs of Cleveland in northeastern Ohio, and kind of did everything there from selling to writing to running errands for the staff. And then I, you know, got married and started a family and kind of needed to climb the ladder. And someone suggested trade magazines. So I got into trade media, and I was the editor of a professional landscaping magazine for 5 years, which is very interesting. People during that time would ask me how to diagnose their lawn problem and things like that because they thought I was a lawn expert. And I kind of became very familiar with grubs and chinch bugs and all that kind of stuff. And there was some, John, you and I both love golf, and there was some golf opportunities because we had a golf publication. So I got to go on some nice golf trips and stuff like that. And then basically had a little career hiccup after that. I kind of made a bad move chasing the almighty dollar, and didn't work out too well. But in hindsight, it actually did work out well because then I found Babcox Media and applied for an editor of an automotive magazine. At the time, I was thinking automotive, not really my thing. I'm not really a car guy. It sounds boring, right? So funny that 20 years later, here I am. I just celebrated my 20th anniversary, and I know more about cars than I ever thought possible. So basically, I've been in trade media since 1999, and it's been very interesting. And there are some parallels between this magazine, Body Shop Business, and my former landscape magazine. Interestingly enough, there's some parallels there. But yeah, so it's been quite the journey, and I'm going on, I guess, 32 total years in media.
Well, that's fantastic. And, one of the things, and this is a relatively new venture for me as far as the podcast, we'll get into kind of the evolution of media here real quickly. But one of the things that occurred to me is, the the people that interview people don't often get interviewed. And you talk to so many people in the industry. You're an expert really in automotive. And I just thought it would be interesting to talk to, another one that's been around a long time, that I've known a long time is John Yoswick. And if we kind of go back, and this may be actually predate you, I was just thinking of some of the trade magazines were available to me when I started, which is probably 30 years ago now. It's like Charlie Baker, CRI Insight, and Kathy Corey. I hope I've got her name right. She actually had a fax newsletter that came out every week that I really looked forward to. And then there was another publication called Parts and People by Phil Rack here in Ohio. So, those are, for those that are watching this or listening to this, that goes way back. But maybe talk a little bit about how media has evolved over the 20 plus years, specifically in automotive. But, you've been in it 30 years now. How media has evolved from really faxes to where we're at now.
Yeah. Yeah, John, you really jogged some memories there with your mentions of those early publications. I remember those. Boy, it is, we talk about how radically the collision industry is changing in a short time. The media world has changed in such a short time. We saw the writing on the wall as a company, and roughly 6 years ago said, we basically have to become a hip and cool digital media company tomorrow. Like, there's no more time. We have to change. and it's so digital now. And if I've talked to retired editors that I used to know back in the day who are now retired. When I'm telling them what I'm doing, they say, "Oh, I would have just quit. I would have quit. I would have never done that stuff." But I mean, in an average day, I'm hosting a podcast. I'm posting on social media. I'm doing a video short. I'm hosting a webinar. I'm figuring out SEO. It's just crazy. It's almost like print is an afterthought, although print is still a viable medium today. And we still have a lot of print magazines. So, but it is crazy. It is really crazy. We only had to worry about the print magazine back in the day. It was one product, the print magazine. Now we've got dozens of products. We have a digital e-newsletter that goes out every day. We have e-blasts. We have the website. We have social media that we have to concern ourselves with and keep our eye on the ball with.
Yeah, and it's been several years, I think, but I was fortunate enough to come up and visit you in your studio in the garage. And I mean, talk about cool. That is some really cool setup there. Maybe go through that a little bit, because I was really impressed with that.
Yeah, we are very, very proud of that. And we, I was telling you about how we had to change very quickly as a company, and that was something we put together in very short time. I think we basically finished it about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and we saw the writing on the wall again. We saw video was the future, and we are producing 300 videos a month now. And it's this. What makes it cool is this studio is an operating auto garage. I mean, it has operating equipment. We have a lift, we have a alignment rack, we have an air compressor, we have an EV battery lift, we have tire changer, all this stuff. But it serves as a video studio as well. It's made for video. So, we've sold sponsorships in there. We have an imitation parts counter. We have everything that you could possibly want. And then aside from that, we have a broadcast studio also that is more kind of looks like CNN a little bit, and that's where we do our podcasts and stuff like that. And then our video crew goes on the road. They're traveling. We have a map downstairs with little push pins and different places they've been. It's covered now. I mean, the video team does a lot of traveling too. So basically our video garage manager says, if you can dream it, we can do it. That's what we tell clients. If you can dream it, we can do it. It is crazy. And it is really exciting. And anybody who visits the garage sees it, their jaws drop immediately. I mean, it is really something to behold.
Yeah, that's for sure, because I was really impressed, and I thought it was an excellent working garage. And I guess a lot of the stuff probably does actually work. I don't know if you
yes, we have cars on lifts, and we have guys going underneath, and sometimes we're actually we're doing work as a part of a video. Other times, occasionally, we'll fix an employee's car. That's another thing. We all of our employees have a sign-up sheet. We say, hey, if we can use your car in a video, or if you need new brakes, let us know. And all of a sudden, their car becomes part of the video, and they get something out of it too.
Now, how many different brands does Babcox cover as far as automotive? And is your position still largely concentrated on collision, or from a content creation standpoint, do you I think I've seen you, because I do look at your content almost daily, and there's, obviously there's car wash and all sorts of different, brands or segments of the industry, if you will. How has your job kind of evolved? And are you still mostly collision, or do you do all sorts of different things?
I'm 100% collision, and it's interesting because I've been 100% collision for 20 years. A lot of editors here work on multiple titles just because of the nature of the job. But in my case, I'm all collision. But we cover everything from 2 wheels to 18 wheels. So motorcycles up to semi-trucks. We have the entire aftermarket covered. And like you said, we have a magazine for car dealers that we purchased a few years ago, more than a few years ago, actually. We have a car wash magazine, professional car washing detailing. So we've got it all covered. Obviously our flagship publication is Tire Review, which was started in 1920. So we are a 106-year-old company now, and it's been amazing. It's been an amazing run.
Now, I have noticed that collision, you go to the conferences, whether it's CIC or SEMA, what have you, and it seems to be integrating a little bit with some necessary different pieces such as glass, mechanical, towing. To what extent do you get into kind of some of those executives and leaders showing up at some of these different conferences? How does that play into, possibly collision as far as your role goes?
We talk about all that stuff, and as we move forward as an industry, there's more and more shops that are taking in that work to do as opposed to subletting it out. Just because of the nature of the job, they want to control the repair and they want to improve cycle time and things of that nature. But there's we talk about all that because it's all part and parcel of the industry. Glass repair, sprayed on bed liners, custom paint, towing, rental cars. It's all part of the industry. So we talk about those all the time, either as a profit center or just as something that you should consider doing, or what happens. What is the arrangement when you sublet something? Calibrations is another great example. I think 30% of body shops now are doing calibration in-house. So there's a lot of shops that are still not doing it. That's going to be coming where there are more shops doing it in-house. But at this point, a lot are subletting it out. So we try to touch on all that. And if there's a new something or else going on out there, that we're on top of that too.
Well, and that's kind of a good segue into my next question. Talking to so many different people and leaders in the industry, what are some of the themes that you constantly hear when you're talking to these people?
Well, technology is a big one, right? I mean, we are now fixing spaceships, basically. It's very, very sophisticated vehicles. And, the industry has done a wonderful job adapting to that. The aftermarket has come up with some awesome solutions to help body shops do this type of work, but it is out of our comfort zone. And there's just too much at stake liability wise to not get this right. But considering when ADAS first came around, we've done a great job as an industry. We need to do a lot better, but we're adapting. I mean, the equipment manufacturers, the stuff they've invented is just mind blowing in such a short time. And the collision industry, their learning curve has increased greatly over a short time. That's a big theme. But I always think, over my 20 years, there's always something, right? Some big challenge and everybody's, like panics and if the sky is falling, whether it was waterborne paint or aluminum repair, when the F-150 was introduced, all aluminum, there's always something. But I think about this industry is made up of engineers. Collision techs are engineers. Some of these guys, they're really smart and they invent their own tools, for God's sakes. So we end up figuring it out. Everybody panics at first and they complain or they figure out a way around it. But eventually this industry will move on and to the next challenge. But right now, ADAS is a big one. Insurer pushback. It's always been there, right? But costs are going up incredibly for everybody, from the consumer at the grocery store to the body shop, buying paint. Costs are up and the insurers are pushing back harder than ever before. And it's really made it a challenge for shops today to be profitable. But, they're pursuing tactics around that to make sure that they get paid properly. And again, going back to the rocket ship thing, these cars have to be repaired properly per the OE specs. And the insurers, are making that a very difficult thing to do. So that is another theme today. How do I was just talking to Mike Anderson on my podcast the other day, and he was talking about, all the reasons why shops are struggling right now with getting work in the door, right? All the reasons we know, the total losses, the higher deductibles, et cetera, et cetera. And it became almost like a doom and gloom conversation. But then he said, we're not trying to be negative here. We're just trying to say, we need to reignite or ignite excellence. And he cited an example of a shop owner who has all calls after hours forwarded to his personal cell because a lot of consumers are having accidents outside of business hours now. And so his point was this person's managed to capture 4 to 6 additional jobs a week by doing that. So just again, there's a lot of challenges. We know that post-COVID, there was a surge in work and shops had more work that they knew to do with. And now, it's the complete opposite. So what do we need to do to ignite excellence? As Mike said, find other ways to capture work because it's slim pickings right now. But again, another challenge. We'll figure it out. We'll overcome.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I've heard that statistic from Mike as well, and I think it's somewhere in the 30% to 40% range of vehicle accidents happen after hours, and that's something that 10 Point Complete, as a contact center, is exploring, is offering after hours forwarding to mobile phones and things like that. We'll test that and see how it works, because I think you're right that it always is a invention type evolution scenario, and ADAS is certainly right at the top of that. And the other one that I hear about, and I hear it more in insurance, and I don't know that, Body Shop Business is obviously focused on body shops, but with high 70s, 80% of claims still running through insurance, or repairs running through some kind of an insurance claim. I've read a lot about them taking advantage of AI. I don't know that, I think as far as parts procurement and some of the things that AI can do, I think it's probably working behind the scenes. But maybe if you had to take a look into the future as far as both media and how AI could impact the industry, any thoughts on that, and where we may be going in the future? One of the things that I always, well, not always, just maybe recently, I don't think AI is going to be actually fixing a vehicle anytime soon. And there's certain things that I think industries that AI is going to impact, and there's probably going to be some loss of jobs there. But there's others that I don't know that it's going to impact efficiency and productivity. But I don't see. Well, maybe Musk is probably figuring out a robot to actually fix a car. But any thoughts about the future? Both media and as it relates to actually fixing vehicles.
Yeah. So it's funny. I was at the CIC conference a few weeks ago in Charlotte, and there was a panel on AI, and they all seem to agree that there will always be a human element in the collision space with AI. There's always going to have to be a human involved, but I think the potential is huge. I think the industry has been slow to adapt it, unfortunately. I hear in the aftermarket, that collision is usually the last one to move. Like we're stuck in the stone age. And if there's a radical new technology development, we're the last to move. That's probably the case. But with ADAS, I think it's lit a fire under us to not be the last one to move. But this AI thing, I think there's a lot of potential. But, I hear like from CCC and companies like that they have AI capabilities in their software now, but most body shops aren't using it. They can see all that, right? They can see what you're using, what you're not. I had a shop owner when I was out of town one time, and he said, watch this. And he called his shop, and an AI assistant answered, sounded just like a person. And not only that, she had a sense of humor. He was trying to throw her off. He was like, I hit a deer. I don't want my wife to know. Oh, that's okay. It's our little secret. It was hilarious. But he was trying to point out that there was an answer to a customer's question after hours by this person. It routed the call in and got it set up and satisfied the consumer. And this was all after hours. I mean, there's so much potential there. Estimating, obviously, that's a big one. But again, I'm hearing that, there's always cool tools in the software from CCC and Mitchell and Autotex, but the shops aren't using it. And they're always encouraging them to use it and teaching them how to use it. What did I see? I saw on Instagram the other day, a robot, painting a car. And, people were like, is this the future? But again, there was a panel of very smart people that I just saw said, there's going to be always a human element here. There's got to be, right? I just think that we have to be open-minded to be able to, have, scan a vehicle and have an estimate spit out is just awesome in like a minute, right? Of course, it's not 100%. Just like an article, we're all in on AI at Babcox Media too. We are being encouraged to use it as much as possible. And I have had it write articles for me, but it's not foolproof, right? We have to edit it. We have to go over it with a fine tooth comb. I have to add my 2 cents as far as my expertise, but it's brilliant. The first time I used AI to write an article, it happened to be an article on ADAS. It was awesome. It was really, really good. I wasn't perfect, but I was about 90% there. So we're seeing that on our end, the brilliance of AI and whatnot. But I think there's also like this industry is an older industry, right? And there's some resistance to this stuff. And sometimes it's political. Sometimes it's whoever's behind AI, they don't like, but we always talk about it to a blue in the face. And I don't like change either. We say no one likes change. I don't like change, but it's inevitable. You got to do it.
Got to embrace it. Well, Jason, this has been a great treat. Interviewing the interviewee, if you will. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but you're usually the person that's interviewing people. And I think it's going to be very interesting to the audience to have someone of your expertise kind of take a look at the media landscape and the industry's landscape overall. Any closing thoughts as we wind down here today?
No, just, it's funny. I love being asked questions for once, because I'm always the one asking questions,
Right.
And one of the things I learned was, when you ask a question, just shut up. Let the person answer it. Don't interject and don't interrupt them, because when they're on a roll, because a lot of times I have to hit a word count, and if you interrupt them, they lose their train of thought. Just let them go. But what you don't want is someone who answers like one word answer questions. Like, it's like, oh my gosh, how can I, maybe they had a bad day, or maybe they're just shy or whatever. Then you got to pull it out of them somehow. But it's just interesting to be on the other side. And you did a great job, John. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you. And I've said it, and I truly mean it, that you are very good at what you do. And I know that I appreciate, the industry appreciates, the content that you develop and educate everyone. So, Jason, thanks so much. We'll see you again soon. If you enjoyed the content in the podcast here, we're on Spotify, Amazon, and Apple. Please sign up. And thanks again so much, Jason Stahl, BodyShop Business and Babcox Media.
Thanks, John.
You bet.